Since the Newcastle United owners bought Newcastle United back in October 2021, they've pledged two things. One is to stay at St James's Park. They don't want to move because they don't want to rip out the heart and soul of the city. Secondly, they've pledged to do anything they can to expand the stadium to allow more fans in, although they haven't put a timescale on that. It's just been revealed that the owners are about to commence a feasibility study in order to rebuild the East Stand using more advanced engineering and architecture to increase the capacity. So really exciting news. In this video, I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. Welcome back, it's Eddie here from Tyneside Life. First of all, a couple of announcements. First of all, congratulations to the Newcastle United women who are to become, from the beginning of this season, in Tier 3 of women's football, a fully professional outfit. So well done. They did announce 2 or 3 weeks ago their retention list, and I was quite shocked and surprised that Beth Guy, to name one, wasn't included in that, because she, in my opinion, was one of the better players. Of course, she's a serving police officer based in North Shields, I think it is, but it makes perfect sense now, if they're to become fully professionalised, that she obviously couldn't join the squad for this coming season. I bet she's really torn about that and a bit gutted. So best wishes, Beth. You know, you were great for the Newcastle women, and I bet you had some fantastic times. Secondly, of course, Newcastle United have announced their shirt sponsorship with Seller, the Saudi Arabian-based events company. And Newcastle have announced that they're going to be working in partnership with Seller to redevelop Strawberry Place into one super duper fan zone. Having released my video on that just a couple of weeks ago, I was approached by somebody who is privy to information about what's happening with the fan zone, and they told me, having watched my video, that I hit the nail on the head. I give a lot of information in that video. If you haven't seen it, I would highly encourage you to watch it. Back to the redevelopment of St James's Park. It's a topic I love to talk about. You could say I study the subject now for a living, and if you go onto my YouTube homepage, if you look at the playlist tab, click on the playlist tab and go down till you find the playlist which talks about stadium expansion and club infrastructure. I've done quite a few videos about this. My views have developed and changed and been tinkered with over the months as I've become more knowledgeable on the subject. I've become more knowledgeable on the subject. One of the reasons being is that I love to talk to people who know far more than me about the subject, who are experts in their field. So I'd encourage you to watch it. So yeah, the owners, according to an article in the Times, it's been revealed, are about to start a feasibility study in order to look to rebuild the East Stand, and they reckon that the results of that feasibility study should be out about this time next year. This isn't going to happen quickly. So of course they want to expand the capacity, because there's a huge demand for tickets, as we all know, but also to bring the stadium up to the status that would be worthy of our Champions League status now. So this is really exciting news. But what I've done in this video to help us understand, I've had a conversation with the gentleman who owns St James's Terrace directly behind me here. He's called Cash Mumtaz. He's from Indian heritage, but he's from the West End of Newcastle, proper Geordie lad. He's also a Newcastle United fan. He's going to tell us a lot more about the building, St James's Terrace and Lisa's Terrace here, and he's going to give us his views on what he thinks could happen in relation to Newcastle United and their plans for the East Stand of St James's Park. Cash, thanks for joining me on Tyneside Life. Cash, I understand you own these buildings here behind us. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've come to own them and what perhaps their historical aspect is to the buildings?
Yeah, so I bought the buildings back in 2016. So there was an opportunity to acquire these buildings. I sort of looked at them and fell in love with them. You know, it's an interesting part of the city, especially with all of the development that's been happening at the former brewery site. So it appealed to me as a developer. It was a good long-term sort of opportunity to sort of take these beautiful buildings and convert them back into use. Previous usage, there were the ones on the corner were former council offices, and the one on the end, it was a sort of an osteopath's clinic, and they were a bit sort of neglected, and I just fell in love with the buildings, and I thought this is a great opportunity, and especially with everything that's been happening at the strawberry site and down at the former brewery. So yeah, that's the sort of context and background. And then I went through the whole planning process to convert them from commercial to residential usage.
So who lives in the properties now?
So it's generally, we find over the last few years, it's mainly been sort of international students. So international students tend to have a preference for living in the city centre, but it's mixed. I mean, we also have some sort of nurses and junior doctors, with close proximity to the RVI. So mainly sort of students and young professionals.
I understand they're listed buildings. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so they're grade 2 listed. So the listing is a bit of a challenge for developers, because you have to work with English Heritage and with the council to preserve the features. By definition, you're not allowed to alter the fabric of the building, so you've got to retain as many of the original features as possible. So we've got a strange situation where we've got an ornate fireplace in an ensuite bathroom. We weren't allowed to remove it, so basically we've got to work with English Heritage to try and preserve as much as we can.
There's talk about Newcastle United owners, and I believe you're a Newcastle fan,
I am.
looking to expand the stadium somehow, any way they can, and there's going to be a feasibility study to possibly rebuild the East Stand. In a few months' time, hypothetically, if the Newcastle owners came to you and said, Cash, we'd like to buy those buildings off you because we'd like to knock them down, what would be the process with that? Would that be, how easy or difficult would that be?
So I think there'd be a number of factors to consider. So one would be obviously working with the council and working with English Heritage, being grade 2 listed buildings. I think it'd be a case of weighing up the sort of economic benefits that an expansion to the East Stand would bring to the city. And I think if I was on the committee, I think the committee would probably be looking at, well, okay, we've got some beautiful buildings which are part of the heritage of the city, and obviously we want to preserve, the heritage is a great city, but then how do we weigh that up with the economic benefits, the investment, and what that would mean to the city? So I think it would be an interesting one. I mean, if I was on the committee and I own these buildings and I'm a Newcastle fan, I think the economic benefits would outweigh the importance of preserving these buildings. As beautiful as they are, I think we've got a team that's now top flight. We're in the Champions League. We've got thousands of people waiting to get on the waiting list, season ticket, and the benefits that this would bring. I mean, it would just totally transform the city.
So it might be an oversimplification, forgive me. So if the owners approached you and said, Cash, can we buy these off you? You wouldn't stand in their way.
I'd be happy to sell the buildings to them, but I'd be happy to see what their plans were. I'd be happy to see exactly what they proposed to do. But if it meant we had ended up with a fantastic stadium, and we had a lot of inward investment coming in. I understand that they've also bought the former strawberry site, and there's rumours it might be turned into a fan zone. So if all of these plans came to fruition, I'd be delighted. I'm a fan as well, so I'd be delighted. Yeah, provided they give me a season ticket.
If you'd like to see more videos like this and be notified the moment I release the next one, make sure you hit the subscribe button.
Cash, obviously you have no personal involvement with Leazer's Terrace, the grade 1 listed buildings. Just to pick your brains, what's your opinion on the possibilities of doing something with the building in relation to a redevelopment of the East Stand?
I think the main objection really is the right to light. So depending on the configuration of the stadium, I think the only objection you could probably have is the impact of natural light coming in. But there's a lot of clever things you can do with good design and architecture. So I think really on this one, they could probably sort of come up with some design on the stadium whereby it's not really impinging on their light, and maybe try and sort of come up with a. I mean, I've seen some quite interesting designs where light reflects from different surfaces. I think that would be the main
Glass.
issue. Glass, yeah, like a glass facade. I think that would be the main objection, really. Other than that, things like altering service roads, that's a lot easier to do. The main objection that I would see would be probably of natural light.
You mentioned just before there, off camera, that they could consider moving the stadium back 5 to 10 metres.
Well, if you look at the road, it's quite a wide road. You've got parking over there, and it's a double-sized road here. So, you could quite easily take up, say, half of the road and have a single-lane service road, and that way you'd still have natural light coming in. You'd take up quite a lot of space for, a possible expansion. That to me would be like the most logical and feasible sort of option.
And you talked about a possible reroute of the small alley down there, but do you own that alley?
No, that's a public highway. So the back lane, it's quite easy to reroute roads. So you've got Strawberry Place, for example. So if the expansion was to go on the Gallagher end, Strawberry Place you could have an underground service tunnel, you could have an overhead type of route. It's quite easy to sort of reroute roads. I think the more difficult thing would be, how do we make sure that, people enjoy natural light coming in.
There are some fans out there who have the view that they can just knock this down brick by brick and rebuild it in Beamish. What's your opinion on that sort of theory?
Well, I think that's an incredibly difficult thing to do, and I also think that
and expensive,
very expensive as well. So that's not feasible. I don't really see the point of that. I mean, they're beautiful buildings and they're here for a reason in this part of the city. But I think the most logical option really would be working with owners and developers and coming up with a solution. I don't think anyone would really sort of object to inward investment coming into the city, object to the stadium being expanded, because everybody benefits. But I think there's working in consultation with everyone. Where there's a will, there's a way.
So working in partnership with the developers, with the owners of the building, with England Heritage, they could work something out, but in your opinion, they're not going to knock it down?
No, I think, look, these buildings have been here for over 200 years, especially these ones behind us, Lisa's Terrace, I believe they're John Dobson and Granger, the original architects that have designed most of the city. So there's a lot of historical significance attached to these buildings. But there's scope. I mean, you look at this road, and there is scope. And I think working in partnership with them, I think we could quite easily come up with a solution where the city benefits, the stadium benefits, the fans benefit, and owners benefit as well.